Welcome, everyone. One of the best ways to prepare for the IELTS speaking test is to see it in action. That's exactly what we're doing today with this complete mock test from Spinta. As you listen, think about what the candidate does well and where they could improve. Afterwards, we'll compare notes with a full performance breakdown. Let's begin.
Good morning. Can you tell me your full name, please?
Good morning. My name is Daniel Ruiz. You can call me Daniel. I am originally from a small city near Valencia, but I have been living in London for a few years now for work and study, so I feel comfortable with both places.
Thank you. Where are you living at the moment?
At the moment, I am living in a flat share in East London. It's not very big, but it is practical and close to my office. I moved here about 2 years ago, because it was nearer to my job and the transport links are good. I like that there are parks nearby, and a small market on weekends where I can buy fresh food.
Right. Do you live with family or with others?
I live with 2 other people, both colleagues from work, so we share the rent and household chores. It is quite sociable most of the time, but sometimes when I need quiet to study or finish a project, it can be a little difficult. We have agreed on a rota for cleaning and cooking, which helps. Before this, I used to live with my parents, and it was very different because everything seemed more organized and less noisy.
I see. Now let's talk about your family. How often do you see your family?
I try to see my family at least 3 or 4 times a year in person because they are in Spain, but we speak on video calls much more frequently, maybe once or twice a week. Technology makes it easier to keep in touch. When I visit, I spend a lot of time with my parents and my younger sister, and we usually go out for meals or take short trips to the countryside. It feels important to maintain those connections even when we live in different countries.
What do you enjoy doing together as a family?
We enjoy cooking together and celebrating festivals. My mother is a very good cook, so family meals are always a highlight. We also like walking in nearby natural areas and sometimes visiting historical sites. My sister loves museums, so that is often our plan. Those moments are relaxed, and we talk about normal, everyday things, as well as memories from when we were children.
Okay. Let's move on to work or study. Are you working or studying at the moment?
I am working full-time as a project manager in a small technology company, and I am also taking an evening course in data analytics to develop my skills. Balancing work and study is busy, but I enjoy it because the course content is directly relevant to my job and gives me practical tools I can use the next day. It is quite tiring sometimes, but I think it is worth the effort for future opportunities.
How long have you been doing this job?
I have been in this role for about 3 years. I started as a junior coordinator and progressively took on more responsibility. I think the experience helped me improve my organizational skills and also my communication with different teams. If I would have known how fast things would move, I might have been more assertive early on, but overall it's been a good learning curve.
Right. What do you enjoy most about your work?
What I enjoy most is the variety and the chance to solve practical problems. Every project has its own challenges, whether it's coordinating deadlines, negotiating resources, or helping a team member with a technical issue. When a project comes together and users are happy, that sense of achievement is very satisfying. I also like mentoring junior colleagues and seeing them grow professionally.
Interesting. Now I want to ask about your free time. What hobbies do you have?
In my free time, I enjoy reading, running, and cooking. Reading helps me relax, and I try to read a mix of fiction and nonfiction. Lately, I've been reading books on behavioral economics. I run 3 or 4 times a week to keep fit and clear my head, and cooking is something I find both creative and practical. I like to experiment with different cuisines and invite friends over to try new dishes.
How long have you had these hobbies?
I have been reading since childhood and running more seriously for maybe 5 years. Cooking is something I took up in my 20s when I moved away from home. My interest in running started when a colleague suggested joining a charity race, and since then it became a habit. It helps me stay disciplined and gives me a good routine.
Can you give me an example of a recent hobby project?
Recently, I tried to recreate a traditional Spanish stew I used to have as a child. I researched recipes, visited a market to get specific ingredients, and adjusted the method to suit my small kitchen. It took a couple of attempts, but the final dish was well received by my friends. That process of planning, adapting, and improving is what I enjoy about cooking.
Right. Tell me about your daily routine. What is a typical weekday like?
A typical weekday starts early for me. I wake up around 6:30, have a light breakfast, and go for a short run 3 times a week. Then I commute to the office where I work until late afternoon, with breaks for team meetings and lunch. After work, I either attend my evening course twice a week, or I cook dinner and read. At weekends, I try to meet friends or explore parts of the city I haven't seen before. I aim to keep some structure, but leave room for spontaneous activities.
How has your routine changed over time?
It has changed quite a bit. When I first moved here, I was studying full-time, so my schedule was more flexible, with more time for socializing. Work has made me more structured. I learned to prioritize tasks and value small routines like morning exercise. Also, studying part-time again has meant I had to learn to switch between different modes of thinking on the same day, which was challenging at first.
Okay, finally in part 1. Do you have any plans for the future you would like to share?
In the near future, I hope to finish my course and move into a more senior role at work where I can lead bigger projects and influence strategy. Long term, I would like to study abroad for a short exchange, maybe in Scandinavia, to experience a different work culture. I also want to keep improving my language skills and perhaps learn more about machine learning because it is increasingly relevant to my field.
Thank you. That is the end of part 1. Now in part 2 I will give you a topic and I want you to speak for about 3 minutes. Here is your topic card. Describe an important tradition in your family. You should say what the tradition is, how long your family has done this, what happens during this tradition, and explain why it is important to you. You have 1 minute to prepare and you can take notes. Begin your preparation now.
Okay, I am ready. One important tradition in my family is the annual New Year's Eve gathering that combines a late dinner, storytelling, and a small ritual of writing wishes for the coming year. My family has celebrated like this for as long as I can remember. It probably began with my grandparents, who wanted to keep everyone together despite busy lives. During the evening, we prepare a large meal which includes a few recipes that are special to our region. Then we sit and take turns sharing highlights and challenges from the past year. Each person writes a short wish or goal on a piece of paper and places it in a small wooden box. At midnight, we read a couple of wishes aloud and toast to health and success. The ritual is informal but meaningful, and over time we added small variations, like passing a candle or lighting a small lantern to symbolize hope. For me, this tradition is important because it anchors the family. It reminds me of continuity when life feels fragmented by work or travel. The act of sharing stories helps us understand each other's struggles and successes and keeps a sense of belonging. I remember once, a few years ago, when I was about to move abroad, I was anxious and uncertain about leaving. During that year's gathering, my father read a wish that simply said, "Keep your curiosity alive," and that short sentence gave me courage. Also, the tradition teaches younger family members about our culture and foods, and we use the evening to hand down recipes and anecdotes. Although as we get older, people join with partners or children, and scheduling can be harder, we still prioritize this evening, and sometimes we coordinate across time zones with video calls, so everyone can take part. It may sound small, but these rituals shape identity, and give us a moment to pause collectively, which in a busy modern life is rare and precious. Is that enough detail?
You mentioned a memory when you were about to move abroad. Can you tell me more about how that evening affected your decision?
Yes, that evening I felt very unsure. Leaving close family felt like a big risk professionally and personally. Hearing my father's simple wish helped me reframe the move as an opportunity for growth rather than just a loss. After that night, I spoke with my sister and parents more openly about expectations, and we agreed to stay in close contact. The result was that I felt more supported and decided to take the job abroad, which turned out to be a positive step in my career and personal development.
Interesting, thank you. Now, part 3. We'll discuss traditions and changes in society. Do you think traditions are more or less important now than in the past?
I think traditions remain important, but their role has evolved. In the past, they were central to social structure and identity, often dictating life events, seasonal cycles, and community roles. Today, while many people still value traditions for continuity and identity, the fast pace of life and multicultural settings change how traditions are practiced. Some traditions have become more symbolic or adapted to modern contexts. For example, family rituals moving online or being condensed into shorter celebrations. For many individuals, especially in urban areas, traditions offer a deliberate space to slow down and connect, which arguably makes them more personally significant, even if socially they are less uniformly observed.
Why do some traditions disappear over time?
Several factors cause traditions to fade. Migration and mobility mean groups disperse and may assimilate into new cultures. Economic pressures and changing work patterns reduce the time families have to maintain elaborate rituals. Also, as societies secularize or place emphasis on individual choice, practices tied to religious or community obligations may decline. Sometimes traditions simply lose relevance. When younger generations don't see the purpose or meaning in a practice, it naturally falls away unless it is reframed to suit contemporary values.
How can traditions be adapted to modern life?
Traditions can be adapted by focusing on their core intent rather than rigid forms. If the underlying purpose is togetherness, then finding new ways to gather, perhaps through technology or by simplifying rituals, keeps the meaning alive. Education plays a role too. Explaining why a tradition matters helps younger people connect. Also, blending elements from different cultures can refresh traditions and make them inclusive for mixed families. Flexibility is key. When people are allowed to reinterpret customs, they are more likely to preserve them in a way that fits modern lifestyles.
Do you think governments should support cultural traditions?
To some extent, yes. Governments can support cultural traditions as part of preserving heritage, tourism, and national identity, provided they do so sensitively and inclusively. Funding museums, festivals, and educational programs can help maintain knowledge and practices. However, government involvement should not impose or politicize traditions. It should enable communities to celebrate on their own terms and ensure that minority traditions are not marginalized.
Right. What role does education play in preserving traditions?
Education is crucial. Schools and community programs can teach the historical context and the social functions of traditions. When young people understand the stories, values, and skills associated with a practice, they are more likely to value it. Hands-on activities such as learning traditional crafts or food preparation also make traditions tangible. Ultimately, education links memory and practice, which is essential for intergenerational transmission.
How do globalization and technology affect local traditions?
Globalization and technology have a mixed impact. On the one hand, they can dilute local traditions by exposing people to a wide range of influences and creating homogenized cultural products. On the other hand, technology can preserve and spread traditions through digital archives, social media, and virtual gatherings, enabling diasporas to stay connected. The net effect depends on how communities use these tools. whether to commodify traditions or to share and adapt them thoughtfully.
Can you compare how traditions function in urban versus rural areas?
In rural areas, traditions often remain more embedded in everyday life, linked to agricultural cycles, local rituals, and regular communal gatherings. In urban settings, traditions are more likely to be adapted, scheduled, and sometimes symbolic. Urban diversity also means traditions can become elective choices people adopt to express identity rather than mandatory social practices. Rural traditions may survive because of continuity and slower social change, whereas urban traditions must compete with many other cultural forms.
What might happen if a tradition is revived after being lost for some time?
A revival can reawaken communal identity and provide cultural continuity, but it also raises questions about authenticity. Revived traditions might be modern interpretations that differ from historical practices, which is not necessarily bad, but communities should be aware of original meanings. Revival can empower groups, especially minorities, to reclaim heritage, but it works best when it involves research and community participation rather than top-down reinvention.
Okay, finally, do you think individual families or society should decide which traditions continue?
I think it is primarily the prerogative of families and communities to decide which traditions they keep, because traditions are about personal meaning and identity. Society, through public institutions, can support and provide space for those traditions, but decisions about practice and adaptation should be made by the people who live them. Imposing continuity from outside can strip traditions of their relevance.
Thank you. That is the end of the speaking test. I see. You did well. Goodbye.
The candidate demonstrated Band 7 level performance. Notable grammatical and usage errors included: if I would have known, I would went there, which should be, if I had known, I would have gone there. And I have been living in London for a few years now, which in one instance was spoken as I have been lived here for 5 years, and the correct form is I have lived here for 5 years. There was also a preposition slip when saying, I am very interested about music in part 1, and it should be, I am very interested in music. These errors were occasional and usually appeared in more complex or spontaneous sentences. They did not prevent understanding. Fluency was generally strong with natural pacing, minimal long pauses, and only slight hesitations or self-corrections such as, when clarifying a point. Vocabulary range was broad and appropriate, with terms like behavioral economics, intergenerational transmission, and commodify used accurately, though there were a few moments of imprecise choice under pressure. Grammatically, the candidate used complex structures and subordinate clauses well, but showed weakness with conditionals and a couple of tense forms under fast speech. This performance merits Band 7 because the candidate communicated clearly and coherently with a wide range of vocabulary and mostly accurate grammar. The few systematic errors were limited to complex constructions and did not significantly impede communication. What prevented a higher score were the occasional incorrect conditional. If I would have known, the occasional tense lapse I have been lived here for 5 years, and minor preposition mistakes, which together indicate inconsistent control of more complex grammar. To reach Band 8, the candidate should focus on eliminating errors in conditional and perfect constructions, practicing precise prepositions, and maintaining consistently natural lexical choices under time pressure. Thank you for practicing with this IELTS speaking mock test. Visit Spinta for more comprehensive mock tests and personalized feedback to boost your IELTS score.